Everybody, we're live with our fifth session of Cosmic Conference, The Future of Work. My name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Cosmic Centaurs, and I'm really excited to be here today for this panel on the future of work, and particularly focused on employee engagement. In this afternoon session, we'll hear from really remarkable panelists talking about how we navigate our new normal, how we redefine company culture, create new opportunities for employee engagement, and prioritize wellness. It's really interesting. Just a few minutes before this conference kicked off, someone I know shared a really interesting article on LinkedIn from HBR, and I told her that I would steal some of it to introduce this session because I thought it was such a brilliant way of introducing it. So here we go. I'm going to read out the quote. Genius, as Thomas Edison famously declared, may be 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. But building a company employees truly love reverses the equation. It's almost all inspiration, and sweat has only a little to do with it. This is the unexpected conclusion of new research from Bain & Company conducted in conjunction with the Economist Intelligence Unit. It says that if satisfied employees are productive, at 100%, then engaged employees are at 144%, so 50% more almost. And then the real kicker is that inspired employees score 225% on this scale. What that really means is that it takes 2.25 satisfied employees to generate the same output as one really inspired employee. And we're really faced with that equation today. Yesterday, we had a session on how remote work impacts, finances and P&Ls. And we had a lot of conversation about shrinking office spaces and reducing costs. But the truth is that if we can continue to inspire our employees, then we don't really have to ask ourselves that question because they'll generate value for us. That's the topic of today's panel, and I can't wait for our panelists to weigh in on this. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. As always, go ahead and give our video a like or any kind of reaction you want. If you think that someone can benefit from this session, please invite them to join us. It's not too late. And don't forget to add your Q&A questions in the comments section. I promise I will make time for all of them. If you want to share about the conference, you can use the hashtag Cosmic Conference to keep up with the conversation, or share about it on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or wherever you like to share. Without further ado, let's get started. I'll start by introducing our amazing panelists. First up, we have Jiten Puri, who leads the human capital function at the Arab Media Group, the media and entertainment arm of Dubai Holding Company. With 23 years of experience in different functions, every career change Jiten made came with a different industry experience for him. This allows him to connect with people at all levels and lead many change projects across consumer goods, telecom, banking, FMCG, real estate, media, and entertainment. Also here with me is a fellow INSEADer, Michel Grebenikof, who co-leads EgonZehnder's industrial practice group in the Middle East. His vast experience and deep acumen across the energy, engineering, and manufacturing sectors have made him a trusted advisor to corporate clients. Prior to joining EgonZehnder, Michel served as Vice President of Business Solutions at Yokogawa in Abu Dhabi, heading the Business Solutions Group. And before that, he was the Regional Director of Strategy, Sales, and Business Development at Honeywell. Baaghil is a very special panelist with us this afternoon, and not just because of his bow tie. He's the most unconventional global brand relevance consultant, author, speaker, podcaster, and advocate of change or die. His out-of-the-box ideas ignite companies to rethink their strategies, reaching their target audience, and building sustainable brands. He's also the proud co-founder of The Core Code, a global think tank on brand, as well as multiple other ventures, including a fast food chain that is Instagram-worthy. I always drool when I see pictures of that. Last but not least, we have Shireen Chaban, Director of People Operations at Talabat. Shereen is an agile coach, trainer, and consultant with over 14 years of experience in software development and change management, having worked with multinationals and startups in the US, UAE, and Egypt in both local and remote setups. She has developed a passion for supporting organizations on their journey to create environments that enable both the individual and the organization to fulfill their purpose and potential. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. So I'm going to start us off with our first question. It should be simple, but tell us about how remote work has impacted employee engagement and culture at your organization or the organizations that you consult with. What are some of your favorite stories from the lockdown? And maybe Jiten, we can start with you.
Hi, thanks, Marilyn. So obviously, we know that culture plays a very important role in engaging employees in all situations, be it the pandemic or otherwise. We've had our own series of learnings. We moved to work from home in a very sudden manner, and transitioned over 3 to 4 months. Now it's a bit of a mindset shift when we come back to the office, just not a physical shift in the place. And we realized that there were lots that we learned, and a lot of credit goes to leadership that has been really driving very positive and engaging employee experiences across. We have heard employees saying that they were like super excited and happy that they are working from home. Some of them, texted me and says, "Wow, boss, this is amazing, and working from home is so cool. I'm so productive. I don't have to do any work commute, etc., etc." At the same point in time, I had messages, "When are we going to get back to the office?" So there was this anxiety, there was this anxiousness, because everybody reacts differently, and everybody has a different perspective to change and how they look at situations. I want to share one more thing. I had a manager who called in and he mentioned that, when I started, it was very uncomfortable for me to deal with my team on MS Teams or Zoom call. After my briefing, there was a dead silence and I didn't know what to do. And I was very task oriented and, micromanaging what are you doing on a daily basis, let me know. And that really created a bit of I would say, an unsettling moment. But then I realized, and I graduated, and this is the real story which I'm sharing with you, that now he came and told me that post our conversation, I do things differently. I have created a more trustworthy conversation. I am more personal with my team members, and I'm more output focused. And he himself told me, he says that, Jiten, there is no difference in an employee being in office in front of me for 8 hours. I do not know if that person is fully engaged or not for those 8 hours, but I physically see that person in the office. So why is it different than when this person is at home? I am possibly doubting that is he really working up to his potential or not? Question mark. So I think this kind of analogy really helped grow a lot of managers and employee relationships, and then this personalization has really evolved the interactions over a period of time. So I think it's been mixed, but I think we are a better organization at the end of it as we speak now.
Yeah, I remember the first time I had to teach a class online for the first time, and I couldn't tell if people were laughing at my jokes or not. It was a lonely moment, but I got there eventually. Shereen, I mean, your organization probably has a large remote workforce from day one. Tell us about, have things changed for you? Did the pandemic change the way you work? And if so, how? Or if not, what are some of your favorite stories from the last 3 months?
So absolutely, things have changed. I think we're a tech organization, and it was a little unusual for me when I stepped into the organization that there wasn't a remote working policy. And there was always this thinking around, I don't know if it's going to work. We're not really sure how productive people are going to be. And I think there were some challenges when we first started doing that, but it wasn't around actually getting the work done. It was more around how do we remote people remotely in entirely different countries, and how do we get them engaged and working with us and upskilled really, really quickly. And I think our organizational value is really around 3 things. And I think that's where our culture comes from. It's around experience first, it's making it happen, and how we grow together as an organization. And I think actually on the flip side, we actually ended up doing too much. And we're probably a little bit living our make it happen value a little bit more than we had expected to. And people were kind of losing the sense of where do we stop working and where do we integrate back into our day-to-day lives and create that balance. And I think that's kind of one of our biggest problems to solve right now is how do we not do as much? And not so much a story, but a reflection, really. I always found it really fascinating how organizations invite like their pets in with them, or how they have like centers for their children, and their children are kind of sitting in with them in their offices. And a reflection that's come out of this experience is, I feel that there's been, we've invited a little bit of our whole self to the office. We're no longer just going in there for work. Our pets and our children, I mean, my children climb up behind me on the bookshelves, and I don't have to explain it. It's just, it's part of it. There's something about having done that invites more groundedness, more relatedness, more humanity into the workplace. And I feel it's made us show up more holistically. And I feel like when we do that, there's actually more that we can offer the organization. So I feel like that's been a huge bonus to this experience with remotely.
Yeah, there's definitely great insight in seeing what happens when our communities kind of merge. Baaghil, you and I have talked a lot about the relationship between brand and employee engagement and corporate culture as a whole. How do you think that remote work has challenged this, if at all?
Well, it depends, actually. You have companies with proper culture and proper brand and proper onboarding on brand as internal stakeholders. And there's companies, a lot of them across the Middle East, they might portray or advocate that they're brand, but they're not brand because they like culture, because culture comes before brand. And in terms of remote working, I was always wondering, especially in the past 3 months, how would things unfold for organizations that lack cultures or portray that they are brand? And I've heard a lot of organizations suffered in the first 1 month. And let's not compare the 1% that exist with the 99% that struggles across the region. We're still on the trading mindset, not a brand mindset. We're still traders, but yet we claim that we own brands. We don't understand how brands work. So we want to put that reality on the table, because we seem to forfeit the truth and always just parachute that what fits us. So if we're going to talk about remote work, and the organization lacks two things: culture and brand. That home for work is just deliverables, task deliverables. Turning the computer off, I'm done. Nothing to do with what the organization is, what are the values of that organization, and how are we going to cope these changes in the near future. I'm not going to talk about 2 to 5 years from now, in the near future. Why? Because what suffers the most is the brand.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you and I have had this conversation, but if remote work pushes us towards more kind of turning our work into a commodity, turning everything that we do into just a deliverable, then where does brand and culture sit? Michel, you help recruit executives for companies, and I'm sure within your own organizations, you've also had to go through this as a manager and an employee. But what do you feel are the biggest changes that you underwent during the pandemic? And what are some of the maybe really interesting things that you saw companies do to maintain that relationship with their employees and community?
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of big aha moments that took place during the lockdown. One of them is busting the myth of, very traditional punching hours, working from home is losing control. And that myth, is clearly busted. And then we've seen, most everywhere in different sectors, productivity going up, having good life balance, meaning less stress. So that was one of the big aha moments. The second is, because we're working remotely, we are, leaders have to depend more on their influencing skills rather than on direct authority, because there's no direct engagement. And add to that, we are really focusing when we onboard leaders at that level on their ability to inspire an organization, because that's the only way they can actually drive an agenda and drive a big picture. And I think HBR stole my line when you started this by saying, inspiration, but it's really, and the higher you go up in your organization, the lonelier it gets and the more difficult it will be, to connect with the people on the ground. And the fastest and most, efficient way is to be an inspiring leader, an inspiring figure to the organization. And this is what we're really focusing on. But most importantly, I think on the personal level, this is my personal experience, I realized how little we need really in life to be satisfied, when we're locked down for 3 months, and how really little we need, to be happy, and the things that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis, right? The day they opened up in Dubai, the first thing I've done is I put on my running shoes and went down and I hugged the first tree. And I said, I've been taking you for granted for a long time, because I've been locked down in an apartment in Dubai, so that part of nature was missing. And so these are the, some of the things that were inspiring for me.
So now you're an official tree hugger. Yeah, I definitely, the day they announced the lockdown was over, I had a panic attack, because I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have so many choices to make now that the lockdown had kind of removed from my life. And to your point, I realized that I could live with a lot fewer decisions and a lot fewer things around me. But definitely, it's very interesting to measure the pulse of what everybody's reaction was when lockdown kind of ended. It's a very telling story. Maybe I can keep you with me for just a little bit longer and move on to our maybe second topic, which is, what do you think are the work models that are going to emerge from this, that are going to change the way that employees engage with their companies? How do you see this moving forward?
Yeah, I think the smartest leaders are really trying to see this as an opportunity and not a challenge, and how do we adapt to it. So opportunity means you need to find the commercial outset of what this means, right? And that commercial doesn't mean that sales growth, but it means how do we create more efficiencies, how do we make things more effective within an organization. And I think yesterday you talked about office space, that's one thing, but I think going forward the big word is, how do we keep a community of employees feeling they're inclusive and engaged when we actually start, keep on being disconnected. I mean, if you look at some of the big companies out there are they're not going to go back to the office before next year. So that's a long time. So they're taking a risk on letting things, have lower engagement, and are they being, do they feel they're in a community? I'll give you an example. One of my colleagues, we've hired our latest consultant, and he had to be onboarded during COVID. So, his biggest fear and let's say, or stress is about, do I feel I'm part of them, I'm part of that firm? Because I was onboarded on Zoom, I had the welcome on Zoom, I had my training on Zoom, but I've never really seen people in person or went to the offices. And these are the challenges we're gonna undergo in the future. I don't think there's gonna be one big model. I think depending on which sector you are, you're going to have to, if you're a very creative sector, it's a completely different model you're going to go to. Whether if you're in a manufacturing, you're going to be, you're going to still need people on the floor shop, and doing things. And there's going to be something in the middle.
Yeah, I'm going to rebound on something you said about our ability to create common dreams and common inspiration that we can rally behind. Go to Baaghil about this, because I'm a firm believer that one of the things that the human species can do that other species can't is rally behind a common myth, right? Invent notions, whether those notions are countries or kingdoms or money. I mean, we can invent a lot of notions and then rally behind them. And that's really the power of brands. Baaghil, what do you think is the power of brands in keeping employees really rallied behind the mission of an organization?
I like what he mentioned about the an inspiration leader. See, if your employees are across 39 countries, 20 countries, 5 countries, even if they're working online, they're still disconnected. We're human at the end of the day. And what connects them is that inspiration leader. The transformation of that leader himself to an idea that he creates as an initiative and brands that initiative to keep everyone connected that will still hold the organization as one. And that's the challenges that we see. So when we think about brand or initiatives or how we push forward, most people think of external forces. Oh, it's related to marketing. But in fact, the best form of initiative. One brand is internal stakeholders because they're the ambassadors. They're the most important asset in the organization. So if you can rally on them and build up one core essence that holds the whole organization with one single inspirational leader that moves them forward, nothing's going to happen. So I would say the right idea today in the middle of all these crises is the initiative that you create internally to put everyone together and an inspiring leader that will push all this forward.
That sounds good. I agree with that. I see Jiten also nodding, maybe in agreement. Jiten, tell us a bit about how your brand contributed to bringing everyone together, and what kind of model are you seeing moving forward? We've seen companies like Shell Hoop announce in the region new working models. What do you see as the future for you?
So I want to just take the reference from Baaghil, and thanks for that. This just reminded me, we were in a webinar with Dave Ulrich, who's the known HR guru. And this is what exactly he did on a webinar. He says, if this is talent, and this is your organization, what brings together is leadership and the brand together. And that resonates so much with the very fact that how we run and sail through these difficult times is really the inspirational leadership, which Michel also talked about, helped us sail through these times. So coming back to the remote working model, obviously there is no one set answer. As Michel also rightfully said, that it depends on the industry and the circumstances that we are in. We in an organization could have some as the media and the digital people and support functions who could be very efficiently working from the back office. At the same time, we have operational people on the ground, presenters who need to be on the air, who need to be physically there in that space out there. And this is what they have been doing. About 20% of our people have been actually working full time as frontline workers in UAE, and kudos to all the efforts that they have put in. In terms of going forward, I think it will be a combination. It will be a combination of things that we would have to assess and experiment. And remember, all the last 3-4 months, we've been experimenting a lot of things. And in a while, I'll share a few more initiatives that we talked about, Marilyn. But I think it's like you're driving in a bit of an unknown terrain. Now, your GPS is also not helping you enough because, you know, the territory is not marked well. It's a bit foggy. Your front screen is not clear enough. You don't know where you're going. Your rear view mirror is potentially partly broken because all the great experiences that we've had for these number of years, some of them actually turned out to be irrelevant because we did not know what to do. And I think it's about us coming together and continuously rethinking about the work and the workplace and what we will evolve as a new working model. Only time will tell. So I think we have to be a bit patient. Yeah, we are asking the right questions. That what should we be doing? Should we be making our 20-30% of employees permanently work from home, or should we be telling all the employees to work 20% from home in a week? And we are doing those experiments right now. But the sweetness and the success of the recipe, which the Puri will tell us a bit later.
Yeah, definitely. If we knew the outcome of the experiment, we wouldn't have to experiment. Shereen, I mean, Jiten mentioned some of.
If I may jump here, Marilyn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I want to jump in here because that's a very good point. I think there are so many uncertainties going forward that only so that all the competencies that you think you've developed as an organization or as an individual might not be useful. What's really going to make it or break it going forward for organization is their curiosity, their ability to engage, their ability to process insights, and the ability to really navigate uncertainty. And that's what's going to make or break the next organization. And I'll give you an example. That's a big example. The sector at the eye of the hurricane today that was hit is travel, airlines. So you know that airlines have built most of their revenue management algorithms. So everything they make their money on based on user behavior for the last 30-40 years, right? So they have an immense wealth of data.
Yeah.
But then today their biggest struggle is all that user behavior is going down the drain, because going forward they're going to have to start from scratch because that user behavior has completely changed and they have nowhere to start from. And this is their biggest struggle going forward. So the more agile they're going to be, the better they're going to adapt.
That's a very beautiful insight on what uncertainty actually means, and a really good story, right? Because uncertainty means that the past is no predictor of the future, or else we would have already predicted that the pandemic would have occurred. And all we thought we knew is no longer relevant. Thank you for that. Shireen, I wanted to ask you, just rebounding on what Jiten said about some of their staff being frontline workers. I mean, when it comes to food delivery, who would have thought that you would qualify as frontline workers? And the pandemic has really done that. What did you do to maintain wellness and just to make people feel safe? It must have been so difficult during those times.
I think in situations like this, the most important thing is being able to be transparent and taking people along the journey with you, right? And building off of what others have just said, it's really about being inspirational. And part of being inspirational means that when you don't know, you say you don't know, and when you are like telling people that we're just going to figure it out as we're going along, that you really are, you're not sending mixed signals. In a situation like this, what you say and what you do have to be completely aligned. And I think something that we had done throughout this is really be as transparent as possible and say, hey, we're going to try this. We don't know if it's going to work or not, but here's what we're doing. Hey, this is what we tried last week. This is what happened as a result. If you have any insights, please come let us know. We're all in this together. We're trying to figure it out. We may not have all the answers, but we're all trying to figure it out together. The other thing is really about creating lots of forums for people to be able to communicate. So I think it's paramount that we're building really strong relationships with our managers, with our leaders, be that like continuous 15-minute check-ins every day, or one-on-ones weekly, or all of that needs to be there, so people feel like they have the space to be able to talk and share what's going on in their life, be it their own career or their concerns or anxieties, and be able to deal with it openly. We also have we have a pretty open forum, like we have town halls, and we have forums where people are allowed to ask whatever they want anonymously or to share their names, and in those we pretty much everything is game. It's not edited. We don't like go in and choose what we're going to answer. We answer everything, and I think that helps to create a sense of psychological safety within the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really important. On this topic, I'm just going to pick up a question from the Q&A, and maybe either you, Shireen, or Jiten can answer this. It's on the same trend, but it's saying a lot of employees are living with anxiety, that the current context may result in job redundancy. Of course, companies are not done laying off people. We just heard from LinkedIn, sadly, yesterday, 950 employees have been let go globally. They see their colleagues and friends losing their jobs. I'd be interested to know what can be done to manage this and how teams can stay inspired and engaged and not simply overworking out of fear.
Yeah, so in terms of our own experience, our industry is also equally badly hit, I would say. And we also have to take some tough decisions with respect to either salary cuts or unpaid leaves, or in minimal cases, role redundancies. Now, what's important is, I think it's at both the angles, Marilyn, that how are we really dealing and supporting the people who are facing tougher situations is one side of the story, because that resonates very heavily on their personal situation, plus what they say about the organization and the brand, as Baaghil rightfully highlighted. And that's the power of what you create in terms of an experience, whether it's an experience while you're with the organization, or it's an experience or a personal touch to the organization, helping you support through this transition, even if while you are going out of the organization. The second angle obviously remains is that, as the Riaz rightfully, the anxiety that sets in a lot of people, that what's going to happen to us? Am I going to be in the same boat? My boss or seniors are not communicating enough with me. So I think to resolve that, I think we need to be genuine and transparent as much as we can, as much as the situation allows. So change and communication is really a bridge that we build between confusion and clarity. And I think we need to really club that together in a way that they really think that we are genuine and transparent to whatever best we can do in the interest of the employees as well as in the interest of the organization. There is no one such formula that we can announce, or any industry. I mean, I've seen some companies have made an announcement that, we will not do this at all. I have my doubts, with all due respect, because you never know what is unfolding in future. So whatever we can do today to be in it together, if we can all take the burden and the load and the weight and spread it across, that's what we have done in most of our organizations, so that we are in it together. It lessens the pain on some people who may be unfortunately, in a little more difficult situation. So I think it's all about the personalization and the experience that you're giving to your employees in the organization, and the ones that we have to potentially, unfortunately, let go from the organization.
Shireen.
Yeah, I think building off of that, I think a lot of organizations talk about being transparent, right? But I think also part of that is I think being honest with ourselves and seeing what kind of environments are we creating. It's really important. You can claim to be as transparent as you want, right? But unless the organization feels really that there is psychological safety, like there's a platform of psychological safety in the organization, regardless of how transparent you're claiming to be, there's always going to be a sense of mistrust. And I think the biggest thing that organizations and leaders especially need to be working on right now is really talking about how do I create psychological safety within my organization, and really exploring with people in the organization what will make them feel safe, right? And then addressing that. And that will look different for everyone in any organization. But it starts there, and I think it will be problem solved differently across different industries and, within different teams even. But we need to be able to do that first. Because I feel like, and in a lot of the organizations I've been a part of, regardless of how transparent they were, if I didn't feel safe enough and others didn't, the message fell on deaf ears. It didn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo that. I have a question for Baaghil.
May I add an angle here?
Oh yes, please. Of course, Michel.
Just an angle. I think there's one big learning that we've captured from let's say best practicing CEOs in the region, is that there's an angle of being very sharp, very fast in the communication. So it's not only about this transparency that it's required, but it's how fast do you make that decision. So if you want to lay off, you have to do it ASAP, because that removes people thinking, anxiety. And I think the best, let's say, if there's a psychological index of happiness organizations, those would be in the leaders who made those choices very early on. I'm talking March. Those made what they need to do based on, on scenarios. And then from then on, the organization doesn't feel there's something coming anymore, because so now they're more or less safe. And some organization kept dragging and hopeful, and at the same time that was hurting the morale of the organization.
Completely. Baaghil, I saw you unmute.
Yes. I just wanted to add something to the whole line of thoughts regarding the unemployment and the question that was raised. One of the key problems that I've seen in my consultancy career is that brand has been used as a commercial entity. Brand is left to marketing. Chief executive officer does not understand how brands work. When he cascade brand down to people, HR, no clue. It's just that these are our values. Hand them over. You expect the employee next day to adapt to it, and all he understands about the brand is that logo that hangs out on the package, or the logo design that's outside of the building, or even the T-shirt that he wears at a work activity, and so on. Now, I like what Michel raised, the point where he said the behavior change in the airlines industry, 35 years, and how are these behaviors are going to change to impact the bottom line. As long as if brand can influence behavior, this is something that we all have to agree on. And brand can not only influence the behavior of customers, also behavior of employees. When the layoff happened, my point here is if organizations are able to raise and create initiatives that shows hope. Okay, yes, we have to lay off people, but you're still going to be part of us. Remember that these employees that are leaving your company, they're still your ambassadors. And remember a second thing, there's something called social media. Any negative impact impacts you every single day. So whoever leaves your organization he needs to remain as an ambassador. But the point of taking an action, an immediate action, and say, oh, I'm going to lay off about 1,200 people, and you announce it, and nobody knows in the organization, not the HR, not the employee. So these employees are living in anxiety. Oh, it's probably me. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to do something to this. The moment that person is asked to leave, you've turned an ambassador to a hater.
Yeah.
And imagine when you have 25, 40, 50 haters, you're actually building a community of haters. I just want to bring that in because I'm so bothered for all these years that I'm consulting that brand has been used as a commercial entity and not as a holistic organizational purpose. Brand is in and out, and in first before out. Thank you.
I think that's a brilliant point. And I think I was going to say earlier, something a friend of mine used to say that I always, have in the back of my mind is, and it's a controversial maybe opinion, but he used to say the most ethical thing a company can do is survive. And of course, it doesn't mean that companies are given free rein to behave like a-holes, but it means that if you are aware that you have to make tough decisions when you're a leader, and sometimes that includes cutting people out because that's the only way the company can survive. It also means that on the broader picture, you're taking care of your community, and that community is your customers, your employees, your suppliers, people who depend on you. It's never just the company, right? It's all the ecosystem that sits around it, your landlord. There are so many people that are going to be impacted if you're so kind that you can't make the hard decision and you end up becoming bankrupt. Like, that's not going to help anybody. And I really love your point, Baaghil, about brand is embodied at every touch point. And I always say, like, if you work for a company and you don't use its product, the company has failed, right? Because it's not able to turn its own employees into its core users and its main ambassadors. I was wondering if any of you would share the story of maybe a leader that you found inspirational during this time and the way that they communicated or the way that they behaved that you'd like to give a special notice to. I have one if you don't, but I'm happy to sort of see if maybe Michel, I don't know, I see you looking at the sky thinking about one. Would you mind sharing?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple. Just some of them are clients, so it might be confidential. But let me think of something. I like. I'm not going to point one, but I like the stories that I heard in the region of conglomerate CEOs, and I'll tell you, why conglomerates have been some kind of inspiring. In a diversified conglomerate, you have, without mentioning the name, there's many of them here, privately owned or big family businesses. They have different divisions in different sectors. And some of in this COVID, one division would be hit very badly. So they would need to lay off people, and another division would be actually growing, due to the COVID. And the big philosophical question of that CEO that we were talking to is, would you take a business decision separately, which is what common sense is? The head of that division will have to lay off people to survive that division, and the one that's growing will hire people. Or would you think holistically from a holding company and try to see if I can shift employees and train them to do other things? So if you're actually selling tickets or ticketing at a cinema, would you be able to now put tomatoes in the bag, and work in retail, right? And deliver if that's the sector that is growing.
Yeah.
I found those CEOs who managed to find those synergies, and instead of laying off people, telling them, you have an opportunity. It's completely different than what you've been doing your whole life. But if you have to survive altogether, you would have to now put tomatoes in the bag. And are you willing to do that? And those leaders, I found them inspiring in these times.
Perhaps you're thinking about the same person. I mean, I'll say who it is because I don't work for them yet, but if they want to hire me, I'm happy to. I think MAF did a great job with that. I think Alain Bejeni went out and over-communicated, not just to his employees, but to everybody. I mean, he was in my LinkedIn feed every 5 minutes. And definitely repurposing the cinema ticket, ticket counter managers to their supermarkets and so on. I just think that was, at least from my point of view, I don't know what happened inside the company, so I can't tell. But from an external point of view, I thought that was inspiring and and open and transparent. And I trusted the company more, and I had no reason. I'm not even an employee. I don't know if Shireen or Jiten, you have any examples that you'd like to share with us, locally or internationally as well.
No, I don't have any local ones that I'm thinking about, and not necessarily part of the time that this has happened. But there's been a couple of companies before during recessions and stuff like that where they've done things like they've gone out to their employees and have said, "Listen, we're not doing well, and we've got a couple of choices. One is we're going to cut everyone's salary by a certain percentage, or we're going to need to start letting people go." And I think being that transparent and that vulnerable with people, I think has created a lot of brand loyalty and a lot of trust within the organization because they own that decision making. So I feel like anytime a leader has kind of entrusted people in the decision making of the future of their organization, I felt like it's created a strong connection with that organization and really improved the brand in itself. So but yes, obviously I echo your perspective on MAP. I think that was an incredible initiative.
Yeah, very well coordinated and really well laid out. Kudos to the PR team as well, I think. On that note, we're 5 minutes away from the end, so I'm going to ask you the question that I ask all of our panelists to answer. Maybe I could start with Jiten. Jiten, can you finish the sentence, "The future of work is," and then tell us why you think that's the right word?
I would say evolving. And for a very simple reason that we need to rethink, rewire ourselves from a work perspective, from a workplace perspective, from a worker perspective. We need to learn so much from what we have seen in the last 4 months. And I'm sure there is more and lots to come. As Michel rightfully said, that we need to be agile and adaptive. We have to continually observe and calibrate what's going around with us, and continuously evolving the business model and the worker model around it. So I would say evolving is the word which I would go with.
For sure, we've all had to become a lot more agile. Shireen, the future of work is?
Use the word agile. I'll say tailored experiences. I feel like every organization is going to have its own separate model. I don't think it's going to be industry related. I don't think it's going to be function based. I think it's really going to be organizations looking at what are our big wins? What do we need to be focusing on? How do I get people to rally around that? And what's the best way to get them to rally around that based on whatever they need in terms of resources, in terms of space, education, whatever it is. And then to tailor it based on that. And it also depends on the entire journey of the individual. Is it at the beginning of when they join or towards the end? But I think it's just looking at all of this is going to be created tailored experiences based on like even down to the individual and the team that they're a part of.
We had a similar answer this morning from Omar, who's an architect, and he also said the future of the office is tailored. Michel, the future of work is?
I think the farthest future of work is going to be a zero marginal cost, and everything we're going to be producing in the future has to come at zero marginal cost. And I'm sitting in a room, and I don't have an office. I'm just working on my laptop. So the more employees you add, the more products you're going to do. Everything has to be closer to a zero marginal cost of everything that you add. You produce a song, you put it on YouTube. All you need is a laptop. There's no producing. There's no. So I think this is the best economy that we can get to in the future of work.
That terrifies me a little bit. Baaghil,
a lot of people.
Yeah, Baaghil, the future of work is?
Beside the current crisis, I think I've been ahead of time. I've been remote for the past 10 years. I've been vacationing for the past 10 years because I love what I do. And I think the future of work is absolutely vacationing for the rest of your life if you love what you do.
I love that. That's brilliant. I hope everybody finds something that they love so they can feel like they're on vacation all the time. Thank you so much, everybody, for your insights. Baaghil, you gave us a run for our money with how brand and internal culture needs to be integrated. Michel talked to us about inspirational leaders and how they contribute. Shereen, you talked about psychological safety and how that's such an important element of things. And Jiten, you told us a lot about communication and empathy and how leaders can adapt to a world where everybody is experimenting at this moment in time. Thank you so much for joining us. This was such an enjoyable conversation and full of amazing insights and some scary thoughts, maybe in the end, there coming from Michel. Thanks also to our attendees and everybody who sent us questions and engaged with the video. A small reminder that we still have our competition ongoing for 5 companies to win a consultation with Cosmic Centaurs. All you have to do is go on the conference page on our website, cosmiccentaurs.com, and then fill out the form telling us what kind of interesting work challenges your company is facing or your team and how you think we can support you. This is the wrap up for this session, but I also hope to welcome you back this afternoon for our last session, where I will be not a moderator, but a panelist, and we're going to be debating the future of work and whether we should remote or not remote, whether we still need offices or don't, and where we think we all stand on this. And that is going to start at 4:15 p.m. Dubai time this afternoon with 3 other amazing co-debaters. So I hope everybody joins us there. Once again, to our panel, thank you so much for being with us. I'm pretty sure everybody in the audience has a lot to think about after this conversation, and wishing everybody a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. All the very best.